Before the American Civil War, a secret network existed so dangerous that even knowing about it could get you killed. It had no trains and no tracks, yet it moved over 100,000 human beings from slavery to freedom across America and into Canada. Welcome to Age of Stories. Today, we uncover one of the most remarkable resistance movements in American history, a secret operation that risked everything to save human lives. The Underground Railroad was not underground and not a railroad. It was a secret network of safe houses, hidden routes, and brave people called conductors who guided enslaved people from the southern slave states northward to freedom in Canada. To keep the operation secret, participants used coded language. Safe houses were called stations, the guides were conductors, escaped people were passengers, and Canada, the final destination, was called the Promised Land. In 1850, nearly 4 million people were held in bondage across the southern United States. They were bought and sold like property. Families were separated without warning. Violence was constant and completely legal under American law. In 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act made things dramatically worse. It forced even people living in free northern states to help capture and return escaped slaves. The only truly safe destination was now Canada, more than 1,000 miles away from many. The Underground Railroad was built by Quakers, free Black Americans, white abolitionists, and reformed citizens who all shared one belief, that no human being could be another's property. By the 1850s, it had over 3,000 active conductors operating across the country. No name in Underground Railroad history is more legendary than Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery in Maryland around 1822, she escaped in 1849 and then did something almost no one else dared. She went back. Not once, 13 times. Over 13 missions, Harriet Tubman personally guided approximately 70 people to freedom, including her own elderly parents. Slave owners placed a bounty of $40,000 on her capture, equivalent to more than $1 million today. She was never caught. Escaping was brutally difficult. People traveled mostly at night, guided by the North Star. They hid in barns, church basements, and secret rooms beneath floorboards. Progress was slow, often just 2 to 3 miles per night, through unfamiliar and dangerous terrain. Conductors used creative methods to communicate. Lanterns placed in specific windows signaled that a house was safe. Songs sung by enslaved people in the fields contained hidden messages about escape routes. Even quilts hanging on fences may have carried coded directions. Churches were central to the Underground Railroad. Many Black churches in the North served as safe stations and meeting points. Abolitionist ministers risked their entire congregations to shelter freedom seekers. Faith and freedom were deeply connected in this movement. Among the most remarkable escapes was Henry Brown's. In 1849, after his family was sold away, Brown arranged to have himself sealed inside a wooden crate measuring 3 feet by 2 feet and shipped by mail to abolitionists in Philadelphia. He survived 27 hours inside that box. The Ohio River was the most critical crossing point on the entire network, separating slave state Kentucky from free state Ohio. Crossing it meant crossing from bondage to hope. In winter, freedom seekers sometimes crossed on ice. One slip meant death in the freezing water below. Women played an extraordinary role that history has often overlooked. Hundreds of women, Black and white, ran safe houses, raised money, forged identity papers, and sewed disguises. This was one of the first American movements where women held genuine organizational leadership. Quaker farmer Levi Coffin of Indiana helped so many freedom seekers that he earned the nickname President of the Underground Railroad. Over 40 decades, Coffin and his wife Catherine helped more than 3,000 people reach safety from the same home, never once caught. Canada was not simply a passive destination. After Britain abolished slavery across the empire in 1833, Canada became a genuine safe haven where American slave catchers had no legal authority. Canadian abolitionists actively partnered with American networks to receive and shelter freedom seekers. Thousands of freedom seekers built permanent lives in Canada, particularly in Ontario around Chatham, Windsor, and the Niagara area. They established churches, schools, and businesses. Many never returned to the United States even after emancipation. Their descendants live in Canada today. When the Civil War erupted in 1861, the Underground Railroad's role began to shift. The Union Army created new pathways to freedom. Formerly enslaved people could flee toward Union lines. The railroad continued operating, but the war itself was becoming the larger force of liberation. On January 1, 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in Confederate states to be free. It was not the final answer, but it signaled that the United States government had joined the cause the Underground Railroad had fought for decades. On December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment was ratified, formally abolishing slavery across the entire United States. The dangerous, courageous work of the Underground Railroad had helped lay the moral foundation that made this constitutional moment possible. Most Underground Railroad conductors were never publicly identified during their lifetimes, deliberately. Their anonymity was their protection and their sacrifice. Historians are still piecing together the full picture of this extraordinary secret network more than 150 years later. Today, the Underground Railroad is honored across America. The National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati stands as a permanent tribute. Underground Railroad sites in Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania draw visitors seeking to understand what courage truly looks like. In Canada, the Buxton National Historic Site in Ontario preserves the story of the freedom seekers who built lives there. Streets, schools, and communities still bear the marks of those who traveled the longest road of their lives to reach Canadian soil. The Underground Railroad was not the work of one hero. It was the work of thousands of ordinary people who looked at a brutal injustice and refused to accept it. Farmers, ministers, housewives, and freed people working together proved that organized courage can dismantle even the most powerful system of oppression. Over 100,000 people walked, hid, and prayed their way to freedom along this secret network. Their courage helped end slavery in America. If you want to explore more hidden chapters of American and Canadian history, subscribe to Age of Stories. New videos every day. We'll see you next time.